So as you can see, I've spent a bit more time working on the details and sculpting in lots more creases and obviously lots more detail into the head. We've got the wound down the middle, we've got all the stitches looking like they're being stretched and they're pulling on the flesh around his mouth and around these open wounds. We've also used those alphas just to add a bit more detail around the eyes as well. But you'll also notice that I've not done anything on the back because it's only going to be rendered from the front, so there's no point spending time enhancing the back. I've also worked more on the clothing and the scarf, but you'll also see that the scarf and the snake have this added detail, and that is purely added in just using the noise tool. If I go to the scarf, go down to surface, what you'll see is we've got this noise tool here. If I turn that off and turn it on again, you'll see that's just being enabled and disabled. Now that isn't physically baked into the mesh, it's sort of added as an overlay. So if you want to bake out the details from this noise plugin, you have to increase your subdivisions and then apply to mesh. And then that will bake these details down onto the mesh, and that will then allow you to then export those to a to a displacement map or something. But to set this up is quite easy, and I did cheat a little bit. I just used some of the built-in ones. Just go to edit, and it brings up this extra box here, and you can you get a preview of what it's going to look like, and you've got all these options that you can play around with. If I just turn the alpha off, let's just cancel that. Now for this one I use the noise makers, so you click on that and it opens up this option here, and these are all sort of built-in sort of alphas, and for this I use noise 7, which is sort of a nice fabric grain, and that's what it looks like by default. But then you can go in to edit it, and then we can adjust the alpha scale just to make that smaller, you know, as small or as large as you want. Now by default it's using 3D, and as you can see around the side we're getting some stretching, but again we spent the time working on the UVs, so why don't we use those for this? And if we switch it to UV, as you can see it's flowing around the object a lot nicer. You know, we've got all sorts of options we can play in here. We can adjust the strength, you know, to something like that. And there, just very quickly, I've got a nice sort of fabric overlay on top of the scarf. Let's just cancel that. Let's undo that. The same was applied to the snake as well. If I go to the snake, go to surface. Now this time I didn't use the noise maker. I went into edit and I used a noise plug. Now because it's already active, I'm just going to click edit. That should bring up another window. I'll just drag this over. And in here you've got lots and lots of sort of presets that you can play around with, and these will all add like surface noise to your models. Obviously I chose snake skin. You can play around with these options in here, but then you can bring this in, it will apply it to your mesh, and then again you can adjust the scale, the size, even the colour, and also the noise curve here, all to adjust how it looks on your mesh. And again, choosing 3D, now this will work for some models, but it didn't really work for this or the scarf, so again, spent the time doing all the UVs, so why not use them to help this noise plugin flow nicely around the snake in a more uniform manner. So that's pretty much it for detailing the mesh. Like I said before, nothing complicated, just use the noise plugins for the scarf and the snake. You could also use it for his body as well if you want that sort of cloth look. It's entirely up to you. Just some basic sculpting just to get the details into his head. So from here it's then just a case of going in and starting to think about adding some colour. So let's go back to the head. And what we want to do is bake in a sort of flat white colour. So maybe skin shade. Now this is probably baked in already, so let's go to fill object. Let's set that to white, or we could just use mRGB. That's it, fill object. So now we can just go to RGB. Let's just set a base colour, maybe sort of a greeny colour. Fill the object with that. So we've defined a base material as skin shade of 4, and even if we change that, that will remain the same because we've added it in. We've applied a base colour, so now it's just a case of going in and just working on painting in extra colours and layers as well. What I like to do is just start off with big bold areas and then work on gradually onto the finer and finer details. So we could maybe just increase that, make it a bit more yellow. And I'm going to use the spray tool, and we'll maybe use an alpha again. So maybe something like alpha 24 or alpha 8. Let's try this one. Get a nice big brush. We'll turn the RGB intensity down because I don't want it really too solid. You see, and we're just using those just to give the head some. In fact, let's just hide the snake, the body and the scarf while we work on the head. So there we're just adding some variation. You know, starting big with big colours. You know, just be big and bold. Starting darker and slowly working lighter, so maybe increase that a little bit. Make it a bit pinker. As you find, as you start to build up layers, it'll just look a little bit more complex and, you know, skin-like. But obviously we don't want him to have realistic looking skin. We're just after something that looks a bit mottled, and he basically doesn't want to look very well. There, we're just continuing on, and then we can maybe drop the brush size a bit. Let's add a bit of blue in, maybe. And then I know I want the eyes to be quite dark, so let's maybe bring that down a notch like so. And we can start to sort of darken around those eyes. Those eyes want to look tired and worn. He's not had a good day, this guy. And, you know, just let's throw in a bit of red as well. Maybe even purple. Make that a bit bigger. As you can see, I'm still just using the same brush, just using the spray tool, using that same alpha. We could change it up and adjust the alphas if we wanted to, you know, for a bit more variety. We can come in and just start to, maybe these cuts want to look a bit bruised around them as well. Again, I'm just going through this quite quickly. I'll pause the video and then I'll work on it further. Maybe a bit more blue. Like that. Maybe not that strong over by that eye. Ooh. So let's make that a little bit smaller now, and now we're just going to start working on these cuts in here. So we'll turn this off. I'm just going to use freehand. We're just going to paint this colour in here just to enhance these wounds. And again, I'm not just going to go in and do them all, but it's quite easy just to go in and paint your mesh like this. Yeah, maybe a bit darker. Zoom in a bit more. Smaller brush. And maybe just redness spills out a little bit because this just needs to look a bit sore. But we're starting to build up the colours there, you know, using big bold strokes. We're using the spray brush with an alpha just to get sort of a mottled look on the skin, and then going in and working on the finer details to enhance the cuts. You know, we could enhance these details as well around here, but you get the general idea with that sort of process. So I'm just going to continue working on this a little bit longer, and then in the next video we'll look at it and look at it textured and see where we go from there.